Hi, I am Ajit Virkud, Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology from Mumbai. Hello, citizens of the internet. Today I am going to discuss postpartum hemorrhage. As usual, I have divided this important topic into many parts, which I will upload in stages. The first part deals with the definition, terminology, and epidemiology of postpartum hemorrhage. At the outset, I want to say this candidly. If you have watched my other videos on obstetrics and gynecology topics, you will know that as a rule, in all my lectures, I have talked evidence-based medicine. But for this important topic, I am going to make an exception to this rule. During my residency days, I have seen numerous laboring women with massive postpartum hemorrhage die at my institution despite treatment, and this has made a tremendous impact on my mind. Therefore, today, besides evidence-based medicine, I am going to add a little bit of my experience-based medicine. So, bear with me. Don't take everything I say today as the gospel truth. A warning before I start. When treating actual patients, follow the WHO guidelines on postpartum hemorrhage and not my lecture. Even if you just find some of my personal statements on PPH interesting, I will be happy. So here goes. When it comes to a lecture on postpartum hemorrhage, the first vision that comes to my mind is the Taj Mahal of India. But for maternal mortality from postpartum hemorrhage, we would not have had this architectural wonder of the world. As the history goes, Mumtaz, wife of Shah Jahan, Emperor of India at that time, died of postpartum hemorrhage during her 14th childbirth in 1630. So great was the emperor's love for his wife that he built the world's most beautiful monument, a tomb actually, in her memory. Defining PPH is tricky. There can be no one definition that fits all such patients. In 1990, WHO defined it quantitatively as any postpartum blood loss from genital tract in excess of 500 ml after vaginal delivery or greater than 1000 ml after cesarean delivery in the first 24 hours. American Congress on Obstetrics and Gynecology has the following definition: postpartum bleeding leading to either a 10% change in the hematocrit between the antenatal and postpartum periods or a need for erythrocyte transfusion. But can one give a single cutoff value to define the condition? In my opinion, one cannot. Postpartum hemorrhage should not be defined quantitatively. We know from physiology that the amount of bleeding that will lead to shock that needs to be treated depends on the patient's reserve capacity, or in other words, her pre-delivery hemoglobin. A healthy woman from a well-developed nation may be able to withstand a postpartum blood loss of greater than 1000 ml without going into shock. On the other hand, a severely anemic, malnourished woman, such as a woman from India, may go into shock and die with blood loss of less than even 500 ml. We have seen such patients in India. So, if I were to give a cutoff figure for PPH diagnosis, I will say this. For poor resource countries like Southeast Asia and Africa, it is 500 ml. For well-developed nations like United States and UK, it should be 1500 ml, and for other nations, it could be 1000 ml. I can put the same concept in another way as grades of postpartum hemorrhage. When the estimated blood loss is between 500 to 1000 ml, it should be called minor, that is compensated postpartum hemorrhage. And when the estimated blood loss is between 1000 to 1500 ml, it should be referred to as major postpartum hemorrhage. When the estimated blood loss is greater than 1500 ml, it should be referred to as significant obstetric hemorrhage, which is the definition used in United Kingdom. So in India, patients with even minor PPH should be treated, whereas in developed nations, only patients with significant obstetric hemorrhage require treatment. I hope you understand what I am saying. Next, I will talk about terminologies in PPH that are not always emphasized in the literature. About 10% of women with PPH will not respond to the initial management steps. This is referred to as intractable PPH. I will talk about management of such a case later. Causes of intractable PPH are uterine atony, placenta accreta, complicated soft tissue tears such as colpohysterorhexis, and coagulopathy. A small percentage of PPH patients do not have any visibly significant vaginal bleeding and are therefore neglected in labor ward, and yet over a period of time they suddenly present with severe shock, which is often too late and results in a maternal mortality. These deceptive patients without any obvious hemorrhage are referred to as occult postpartum hemorrhage. Most of occult PPH cases are due to unrecognized severe soft tissue trauma resulting in accumulation of blood in the pelvis, usually as a broad ligament hematoma, which goes unnoticed until it is too late. The literature does mention this but does not give it importance enough to label it as distinct type of PPH. Remember, close observation is important, as slow trickling is highly dangerous. I know this from experience. In my personal opinion, PPH cases are of two types. Initially, they are reversible. That is, if you diagnose and treat them in time, they will survive. Later, they go into what I refer to as the irreversible stage. Once she reaches this stage, no matter what you do, she will die. Although it is just a concept and difficult to diagnose clinically, it is important to be aware of. The sad truth is that one can never know when a reversible PPH will go into the irreversible stage. According to WHO estimates, 10.5% of all live births in the world are complicated by PPH. Postpartum hemorrhage is the commonest and most important preventable cause of maternal mortality. Worldwide, more than 140,000 women die every year as a result of postpartum hemorrhage. That is one death every 4 minutes. In addition to death, serious morbidity from PPH may follow. The next thing I want to discuss is the normal physiological mechanisms which prevent PPH during delivery. If these were not present, human race would not have survived, as the first woman who delivered the first child would have died of PPH. There are two mechanisms which prevent PPH normally. The temporary mechanism, which is also known as myotamponade, and the more important permanent mechanism. Temporary mechanism is the so-called living ligatures of uterus. The myometrial muscle fibers running in a crisscross fashion around the uterine arteries constrict the vessels when they contract after delivery and hence stop the bleeding from the placental site temporarily. Apposition of the uterine walls following placental expulsion, that is myotamponade, also helps to arrest hemorrhage. But only this mechanism cannot work because there is something called muscle fatigue, and after some time the muscle would relax and the mother would bleed again. This temporary arrest of hemorrhage allows for the formation of firm blood clots at the mouths of these vessels at the placental bed, which occurs as a result of increased viscosity and hypercoagulability of blood, an important physiological change of pregnancy. Remember, the initial temporary mechanism is essential for the next stage of permanent mechanism to take effect. Clinically, postpartum hemorrhage is of two types: primary PPH or early PPH that occurs within 24 hours, and late PPH, which is bleeding occurring after 24 hours up to 6 to 12 weeks. Majority, that is 98% of PPH cases, are primary PPH. Causes of primary postpartum hemorrhage are atonic or hypertonic uterus, which is seen in 90% of cases, traumatic 6%, mixed, that is atonic and traumatic, coagulopathies, for example von Willebrand's disease, and miscellaneous, such as after anticoagulant therapy. There are various antenatal and intranatal risk factors for occurrence of PPH as shown here. I am not going to talk in detail about all of them, but the important ones are anemia, antepartum hemorrhage, previous history of PPH, and of course the most important risk factor, which is mismanaged third stage of labor. Having said this, I want to emphasize that all pregnancies are at risk of developing PPH, even if no high risk factors are present. So always be prepared. PPH often occurs without warning. Talking about the causes of PPH reminds me of a question often asked in Viva. What are the 4 T's of etiology of PPH? Well, I know 5 T's if you include uterine inversion as a cause. These are tone, tissue, trauma, thrombin, and traction. Causes of secondary postpartum hemorrhage are postpartum endometritis, retained products of placental bits or membranes in the uterus, early onset choriocarcinoma, which is a rare cause, and idiopathic, which is seen in 1/3 of cases. This is the end of part 1 of my lecture on PPH, and in the second part, I will talk about diagnosis and management of postpartum hemorrhage. For further reading on this topic and other topics in obstetrics and gynecology, refer to following books written by me. Practical Obstetrics and Gynecology, Modern Obstetrics, Modern Gynecology, Clinical Cases in Obstetrics, Questions and Answers, Clinical Cases in Gynecology, Questions and Answers, and Pelvic Reconstructive Surgery. If you have found this video useful and informative, please subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking here.